Well, let's me and you fix a gas tank. We're going to put some Red Kote fuel tank liner inside a tank. But now to do that, there's a lot of things that has to be done before you can just empty the gas out, pour this in, call it done. What are you thinking? You can't do that. If there's rust in there, don't just pour over rust, because rust doesn't stop. It'll just keep going. So we got to take care of rust. A lot of prep work. Now I've seen a lot of videos of Red Kote on a clean tank, but what about rusty tanks? So that's what we're going to look at today. Me and you are going to fix an old rusty tank with some good old fashioned Red Kote. Now I know there's Pour 15 out there, there's all kinds of other stuff, there's rust eliminators and all kinds of things you can buy, but let's just kind of do it old school way. Just some muriatic acid, some water, some Red Kote. So anytime you're working with a tank, always work outside if you're going to use acid. And so I got my old tailgate down on my shop truck. Throw us a towel down. So I'll use an old hose that I don't mind getting wasted. And it's a lot longer, but that's okay. All we're going to do is just cap off these so they don't leak, because we want to save the paint on this tank. This is an anniversary edition, so we sure don't want to wreck the paint. So our plan is to cover up all the holes that are in the tank. Now this hole here goes all the way through to the top side of the tank, so we don't have to cover that. This hole here is for our fuel gauge lines, so that goes all the way through to the top of the tank. We don't have to cover that either. But now we have our petcock here. So I keep an old one around so that I can cap this off properly, because if you tape over this, it could leak and seep up and get on the tank. And if it gets up here, then it'll be noticeable. So just want to cap this off real good. Doesn't matter where the fuel petcock is. On reserve. So I will turn it off, and we can use that to leak out of there as well. Now the bottom's done, let's go to the top. We have our fuel spout here that we will cover, and then where our fuel sending unit or fuel gauge was, we'll cover that as well. So inside that we can use duct tape. I don't want to cover up top, because that means the acid will leak out and could get around here. So what I want to do is just tear off a little piece and cover down inside that hole. Now I won't do that yet, but I will cut me out some pieces for that size, because I'm going to pour the acid in here, and then I'll be able to put this on. So about that size is what I need. I want to break off 3 or 4 layers of it. I ran out of my good Gorilla duct tape, so I had this laying around, and it's not very good. Now I will go ahead and seal that up, the fuel sending unit holes, and I will press down on there good. I will do 4 or 5 of these as well. Now I won't be using a lot of acid, so it's not like I'm going to be sloshing it around everywhere, but we just want to be careful. Now you have a breather vent tube here that I want to cover. Now if that drips out and runs down in here, this is all covered, So we should be able to wipe it up pretty quick. Now, to cover this tank, I want to do this just as a precaution. In case some leaks out, I don't want it getting up here on this tank. Now, I don't want to put the duct tape on the tank and peel it off. If there is any kind of lift underneath this paint, when I go to pull the duct tape off, it'll take the paint with it. So a good habit, just as a precaution, use you some painter's tape. Cover everything with that. Then when we go with our duct tape, I'm just going to go right here over the hole. And I feel like that's probably overkill, but in case that acid eats through the painter's tape, it will not eat through the duct tape as quick. Alright, so this is done now. We will, actually, in case it runs down, let me do a layer right there and one right here. Boop. We'll stick a funnel in there. I'll turn it around this way. And what we're using, I've had this in the shop for a while, is muriatic acid. This is very, very acidic, very poisonous. If it gets on your skin, it'll burn you. If it gets in your eyeballs, they're toast. So when you're working with this, always keep you some baking soda, baking powder close by. This base will neutralize the acid. So if you get it on your hands, which I hope you're wearing gloves, if you get it in your eyes, throw some powder up on your face if you get it in your face. So now we're ready to pour. Just going to break the seal on that. You can see it's smoking already. Bad, bad stuff, guys. Do not let this get anywhere around your skin or in your eyes, or don't breathe this stuff in. That's why we're outside. Now, how much to do? Not even half of this, okay? Not even half. Now we will grab something like this to take up out of there. Now we're ready to go back in with our pieces of duct tape that we stripped off already. And then as another precaution, we'll seal that up just to save paint so nothing leaks out. Now, I don't want to shake this, and what you want to do is just work this around. This is exactly how you'll do the red coat as well. So you want to work this around. Make sure it gets up where it's supposed to get. Do this for a couple minutes, and that's all. You don't leave this in there, okay? Let me get a bucket so we can catch that fluid, that acid. All right, I got a bucket down here. I'll turn this around. And I will switch that petcock on, and we will catch our acid out of that. I'll poke a hole here so that it can run out more. Ooh, that stuff is stinky. Nasty stinky. Oh, gosh, it stinks. And we'll get some water to flush it out, and we'll look inside and see what we did, and might just need to repeat the process. All right, we have flushed it out pretty good with our water. Coming out nice and clean and clear now. We will take our fuel line off. Wipe everything down. This is all water that I'm wiping off the tank, by the way. Now, if you use apple cider vinegar as your acid, it will not eat through paint like the muriatic acid will. So that is an option, but you have to let that set in there for 3 or 4 days if you're going to do that. Now, this way is messy, but it's quick. 2 minutes and you're done. Now, we might have to do another coat. I'm not sure yet. Let me get the scope and we'll run down inside there and we'll see what's happening on the inside. Alrighty, I'll take some pictures of it on here for you. If I can look down in this other side, which is the gas fill side. I'm going to try to save on this so I can reseal it. Oh yeah, shiny now. It's amazing how quick that stuff works. It really is. Get a picture of that. And back there in the back, oh yeah. Okay. Well, I'm happy with that. We won't need to do another coat. So what we'll do now is we have to let this dry. So I've opened up both caps here and I've got the crossover disconnected. I'm going to set this out here in the sun. It's nice and hot today. I actually probably set it in my truck seat so it's hotter in the cab. Let all this air dry out. Then we can start with our red coat. So while that's drying, let me show you some of the pictures of before. So there's a picture of before. Pretty bad shape. To only have 6,000 miles on it, this thing is set. There's a lot of gas in it. It looks like it might have had some type of liner in it before. I'm not sure. Now we should be getting to some, that's still the old pictures. The old picture. See how it's got that flaking in there? That's why I was like, man, this, whatever they lined it with has come apart on them. And there's the new pictures that we just took. Isn't that amazing how well that stuff does? Now you see this pitting here? So if we were to have just red coated over this without doing the numeric algebra acid, if we hadn't have done the acid and annihilated that rust, then and just red coated over it, this would still, the rust would still be in those pores and they would eat right through the tank. Have you ever seen well, just look at old trucks and stuff. Go walk by the side of them and around the wheel wells. It's rusted out. It's ate through. It's rot. And that's from the rust coming out from the inside out. So that's why it's important to always do your acid or annihilate your rust before. Look how clean that looks, guys. Now that yellowing is just the acid before I washed it out good. Wow, look at that. That's amazing. Okay, so this has dried a couple of days now, and we're ready to put our red coat in. And pardon the mess on my desk, it's just a messy day. That's what it is. But this part I don't have to do outside. Not a lot of chemicals. Now this, you know, you don't want to sniff this or huff this, but you can do this indoors. I've got the crossover hose back on. I've got the old petcock that I used back on. I did blow out with air just in case there's any fumes left. I left this on. I did cap the fuel spout off. I taped it off, and I've opened this because this is what we're going to pour the red coat in. Now to pour the red coat, don't shake this up. It's not like its paint needs to be mixed. A couple of tips. Don't use a lot of this. The more you use, the longer it'll take to cure. It doesn't really take much to coat. Think of it like you're going to take a paintbrush and dip in here and paint the inside of this tank. It wouldn't take much at all for this size of a tank. So you don't want to pour much in. You don't want bubbles. If you get it on anything, make sure that you have some acetone handy. Acetone will take this off. If you mess up and want to redo it on the inside, cap it off again, put acetone in here. That'll eat up this red coat and get rid of it. So now we are ready to pour. So we'll break the cap on this. This is a new can, and you can save what you don't use on other projects. Now they do tell you if you pour and you have excess, you can drain it back into this, but I don't ever do that because this will probably drain some surface rust out. So we'll take that off. There's what the coating will look like. It should be really thin. And now we've got our funnel here, and we will try our best to pour. I put the whole thing over on the funnel because it will run down some, and it does not take much at all. Okay, I didn't even do a half of this. I'll put the cap back on. It will be messy, but that's okay. Now I will pull this out and catch the excess. I will cap it off down inside there really quick. You don't want to wait too much because as soon as that red coat gets some air in it, it's going to start sealing up on you. And you don't have to use duct tape on this. It should stay in pretty well. Now do not shake your tank. What you want to do is you want to run this red coat all the way over. Think of it painting the inside. Painting the inside. Don't focus too much on it being on the top of the tank because that's seldom rust, but the bottoms is what you want to cover. So you should not hear it sloshing around. If it's sloshing around, you probably have too much in there. All right, and that should be it. Now what I'll do, I'll go ahead and take this petcock off. So anything that is excess, which it should not be much, can go ahead and drain out. The way you know when it cures is when it stops stinking. So we just don't know how long that could take. Sometimes it takes a day. For more applications, it might, or bigger tank, it might take more than that. Now, it does say that you can put multiple coats in, and so this we might have to do another time because it had such bad pitting. So I'm going to take this petcock off now, drain out the excess if there's any left. We'll take this off and let it cure for a little bit, and I'll get the camera down in here and we can see what we did. Now, words of caution: do not, like if you're worried about the crossover holes, you know, filling up, don't worry about that. I'll take this crossover off and let it drain out as well, but don't introduce air into this when it's wet, because air can get up underneath this as it's drying and bubble. So don't add any air to this, let it cure by itself. So just to kind of show you here, this is a trash can that I drained it out in, and that's how much came out. So not a lot's going to pour out, but there will be some that come out. And while it's draining, you can kind of keep working it back and forth and try to get the most out that you can. And then I just brought it out here and set it on the back of my old truck tailgate. I did take the crossovers off here so that, you know, air can go through there, and nothing really much came out of that. And then I took all of this off as well. So we'll let that drain and we'll see how that does. So just to show you what this stuff looks like, here's the funnel where we poured it in about 10 minutes ago. And it's already kind of solidifying. See if I can get a chunk off here. So it's like a almost rubbery coating that works really, really well. I mean, guys, this stuff's been around for years, and it works really, really well. So that's what this is. If you want to clean your funnel off while it's still kind of tacking up, you can go ahead and really just peel it off. But if you want it off completely and out of the bottom there, you just get you some acetone and a rag and wash it down in there. But I always just kind of peel it off with my fingers. It's gas resistant, so, and oil resistant, so if you're using gas and oil and other things with this funnel, it's not going to hurt it once this right here dries on the funnel. But it's pretty easy to get out. Just poke it through the other side here if I can. There we go. There we go. There we go. It's all off there. Well, maybe a little piece there. Now this outside, this is Red Kote I used probably 6 months ago that I didn't get off, and it's still on there, good and coated. So this is your Red Kote. So we'll let that dry, and I will tell you how long it took for that tank to cure. Now I do have it sitting out in the sun, and it's about close to 90 degrees outside. So it shouldn't take long to cure. The only way you'll know it's done now is the smell test. So this will actually tell you on here, drain out coating, tilt the tank in every direction, hold for 30 seconds to allow the liner to run toward the drain hole. But I put enough in there that it pretty much will coat it all. And I kept doing it over and over and over. Dry time is variable. When cured, there will be no solvent smell left in the tank. So that's how you know that it's cured, is when that solvent smell is gone. And this smells, if you were to smell it, this smells like, oh man, you older guys will remember, used to buy those little, I don't know what they're called. They're like balloons that come with this straw, and you would blow them up, and they were like a plastic kind of real thin material. It smells just like that. If somebody knows what those old balloon things were, just let me know. They weren't rubber balloons. They didn't blow it big, but they were real small, and you'd blow them up about that big, and they stunk. And that's what this smells like. So let me know in the comments what those old toys were. Probably come out in the 80s, mid 80s. Yeah, I'd say mid 80s, early 80s. Okay, so let's see if we can. I ran the camera scope down in there. Now remember, it's still wet down in there. Now let's see. Okay, so here was the before, the Red Kote, and there is the after. Now remember, it's still curing, but we got a really good coat on there. I would say that was a success. I will probably do another coat just because the pitting was so bad, but it looks like it's curing well. I didn't make too bad of a mess on myself. All that'll come off in the acetone. Well, that's going to do it for this video. The Red Kote was a success. I did go back. I let it cure it took about 12 hours to cure. I did go back and apply a second coat, and this time when I applied the second coat, I poured the Red Kote in the other access where you actually put the gas nozzle in. Because that tank had such a deep channel, when I poured it in one side, it was able to coat the other side, but not as much as I wanted. So when I did the second coat, I went back in and poured it in that second channel, or that other channel, and that really seemed to do the trick. So you can use this. I wouldn't coat a tank more than twice. If you're coating a tank more than twice, then you probably need a new tank. Something's wrong. But this had such bad pitting in it, I didn't trust just one layer, so I did another layer. So about 12-hour curing time, and then I did the second coat. I'm gonna let that dry overnight. And so thank you so much for stopping by the shop today, and tell your mom and them I said hi.